Time once again for the Kaufman Corner podcast with you as always, the good doctor, Dr. Rany Jazayerli, one of the co-founders of Baseball Prospectus. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB. We're going to talk about the winter meetings. So far, nothing to report, but some rumblings, some names. How do they fit? What would it cost? Hearing some names that maybe other teams are interested in with the Kansas City Royals, players that the Royals are interested in. We'll see. We'll see how far we go with this. We might get to maybe talking about where the ceilings are on the Royals position players. We don't know. We don't know if we got time. Bed Bath & Beyond, definitely not going to have time for that. It's coming up right here, right now on the Kaufman Corner podcast.
You're listening to the Kaufman Corner podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Royals, breaking down the Royals like no one else can. Kaufman Corner is hosted by Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro. Rany is a co-founder of Baseball Prospectus, author of Rany on the Royals, and a former columnist for Grantland, The Ringer, and The Athletic. Soren is the award-winning afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. Kaufman Corner is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. And now, here are your hosts, Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis. Off and running here on the Kaufman Corner podcast. And Rany, the winter meetings have started with a whimper. Nothing to see here. Nothing to report. We always get excited, like, okay, what are they going to jump in and get things done? It's not just this year. It's like more and more overall. That's just how this seems to be, right? It used to be things, they got to the winter meetings and things got done. Everybody chats and goes home. And it seems like it all trickles in later.
I feel like every year has a different flavor to it. There are some years where it starts off with a bang, and I feel like one big move will precipitate another because, so many teams have their sights on the best free agent, and only after they get shut out of whoever the best free agent is that year do they move on to the next guy on the list. So a lot of times there's a dam that's holding things up, and if that dam breaks early, then the flood will happen early. If it doesn't, then everything gets slowed down. Currently, I'm not currently on Twitter checking to see if something happens, but I trust that our commenters will let us know. I'm still hoping that the Royals do us a solid, like the time they promoted Jack Caglione in the middle of our show. We could use some live content right now because you and I are reduced to speculation and parsing through the rumors right now, which is not nearly as fun as actual transactions to talk about.
But it is still what we do, right? Is to speculate. And like right
never
now,
stopped us before.
Yeah, like what we're hearing out of the rumors right now, nothing is really out of the ordinary, right? That's the one thing that I would say is that it all looks like exactly what we've been hearing. So, I mean, I think all the reporting has been good on what they want. They want a right-handed bat. Everybody has them going for multiple outfielders. Everybody has them trading a pitcher. It's just, who's it going to be? It seems to me like the Royals, like when you read things, you read that the Royals want to move Kris Bubic. Others want Noah Cameron or Cole Ragans. Like, is that the one theme? You agree that that's the theme we're seeing, that they may want to move Bubic, but the industry is not interested? And I shouldn't say not interested, but the industry seems to be focused on the guys that actually finished pitching.
Yeah, and then the other thing is, the Royals want outfielders, and teams are reluctant to part with them. So on the one hand, like you said, all the reporting is exactly as we'd expect. The Royals they're following the chalk. Like, we know what they need. They know what they need. And on some level, it's reassuring that they have the common sense to identify, yes, we need outfielders. Yes, we have an excess of pitching. And, regardless of the maxim that you can never have too much pitching, the Royals understand they have to trade pitching if they want to get what they want. And what they want is outfielders. And they're willing to look at both the free agent market and the trade market. And, the most recent rumors suggest that they might take one from column A and one from column B and try and get two outfielders, sign one as a free agent, acquire one in a trade. So there's no surprises, like you said, with the rumors. There's a new rumor that they might be interested in adding like a left-handed reliever, a good left-on-left reliever, which, if the price is right, it seems the rumors indicate it's a secondary priority. Their top priority is still the outfield, but it wouldn't, if you're going to add to the pitching staff, that would not be a bad area to add. So I have no reservations about what it is they're looking for, but the market this year, unfortunately, is almost like perfectly designed to frustrate the Royals, because the market is heavy in what they have to offer, which is pitching, and very light on what it is that they want, which is outfielders, but especially right-handed hitting outfielders, and to a historic degree, in fact. Mike Petriello at MLB.com wrote a really fascinating article a few days ago, which talks about not just the dearth of outfielders, but specifically right-handed hitting outfielders. The reason why it seems like they're so hard to find in free agency, or they're so hard to find in trades, is because there are so few right-handed hitting outfielders who can hit in baseball, period. So in 2025, there were 16 outfielders in all of baseball who had at least 400 plate appearances and an OPS plus of at least 100. We're just talking about an average or better hitter with 400 plate appearances. So an everyday guy who could at least be an average hitter and batted right-handed, played the outfield at least half the time. 16 in all of baseball. That is the fewest number of, we'll call them just everyday decent hitting outfielders who bat right-handed in baseball in any season since 1960. And think about it. 1960 was the year before expansion. There were only 16 teams. So the fact that there were 15 outfielders out of 16 teams is a hell of a lot better ratio than 16 outfielders out of 30 teams. There just aren't any right-handed hitting outfielders who can hit. Now, a big part of that is because outfielders in general don't hit as well relative to the league as they used to, because other positions are better. Like, you never used to have good hitting shortstops, right? It was easy to find an above average hitting outfielder in the 70s because all the shortstops hit 210 with 2 home runs. So that brought the average down, right? Like, you have Bobby Witt, so that kind of makes up for the fact that your outfielders aren't necessarily as good as they used to be. So that's some of it. And some of it right now is just there are more left-handed bats in the recent years than there have been in a while. Some of that is probably because 3 years ago, you recall, they changed the rules to restrict the shift, which was killing left-handed hitting bats because you could just move 3 guys to the right side of the infield. And sure enough, like, the percentage of plate appearances taken by left-handed batters was actually going down consistently year over year from 2016 to 2022, down to about 39.5%. It was back up to 44% last year. Like, it has spiked significantly. So basically, teams are more likely to use left-handed batters, and they're less likely to have outfielders who can hit. You put all that together, and it tells you, like, the danger here isn't that the Royals don't get a right-handed bat. It's that they overpay for it. There aren't that many out there. And when you see the Orioles trading a guy who was one of the best pitching prospects in the game 2 years ago, Grayson Rodriguez, for 1 year of Taylor Ward, who's good, but like not a world beater. I'm like, it makes me nervous. Like, I don't want to overpay for a need. You might be better off just finding the best hitting outfielder you can. And if he's left-handed, so be it. Like, it's not, right-handed is a luxury. It's a nice thing to have, but it's not a must-have. What you need is somebody you can hit.
Well, let's talk about that. I mean, Terry says, if they're better than what we have, why does it matter, left or right? Right. And, I get it. Cotman agrees. He says, yeah, same thing. Yes, you would take a great left-handed bat over a bad right-handed bat, but like, you're still trying to put together the best lineup. That's why it matters. Like, first and foremost, why it matters is because you have Jack Caglione, for one. Okay, so you've got the left-handed part, and to either soften his, development, or soften the, give him a chance to not have to see the best left-handers out there. They want to put a right-handed bat with him. We've been talking about that from the get-go. That's one of the first things that was out there, is that they're looking for a platoon partner with Jack Caglione. We started this offseason talking about, like, what does it say about Caglione, right? But it whether it's one, to just kind of ease him into the role, or two, it's because they've looked at him and gone, that swing's not going to hit lefties. And so we've got a platoon player here. Hopefully it's a platoon player that crushes right-handers, but either way, like, they want a platoon partner for him. So, and you want to develop Jack Caglione. So let me say that first and foremost. The first reason you want a right-handed bat is because you want somebody so that you don't feel like our best chance to win today is to put Jack Caglione in there where he's basically just hoping to get a hit, right? And you do not want him to then have to drag his bat up there looking at 0.78 for a batting average, 127. I mean, we saw it. I think his swing is a lot better than MJ Melendez, but like once it goes in the toilet and the numbers start piling up, and you start realizing, like, I got to be hot for a month before I can get that to like 250. It starts to get in their head. So, I mean, I think it's important to get a right-handed bat, and as you said, to potentially overpay to get a right-handed bat to make sure that you're giving Jack Caglione the best chance to be successful. That's one of the reasons why it matters.
I think they absolutely have to add a right-handed bat. It's just a matter of, do they want to go at the top of the market? I'm the guy who was like saying, hey, last week, Harrison Bader is my guy on the list of free agents. But when you start hearing like that that he's now looking for a 3-year contract, like, do I want to go 3 years for Harrison Bader?
No,
maybe not. Right.
Let me answer. No.
Yeah. So the fact that, like, the more recent rumors that you see Austin Hayes being a guy that the Royals are looking at, who's not the player Bader is, particularly defensively. He's pretty much a left fielder, not particularly good at it, whereas Bader is still very good and can play center. But kind of, the price tag fits, and he crushes lefties. Like, he has a big platoon split. He's slightly bigger than Bader's for his career. And, that's a guy who would fit what the Royals are looking for. You can platoon with Caglione if you want. But I think more and more, and you see this in the rumors as well, if the Royals sign 2 guys, I'm coming around to the idea that, you know what, maybe the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. I think they're going to re-sign Mike Yastrzemski. I think they're going to go a second year and just do that. And when we talk about platooning, look, Caglione, the concern is he might not hit lefties. With Mike Yastrzemski, you don't have to worry about it because he can't. It's done. Like, his career line against left-handers, he has a 648 OPS against lefties, 809 against righties. Last year, it was even worse. I think he hit his batting average was like 138 against lefties. He only had 94 plate appearances, a 427 OPS. But against righty, he was over 800. So to me, it's like, we know Yastrzemski can hit in Kansas City. We both talked about like how it really seemed the entire team offensive philosophy flipped the moment they acquired him. The problem is he can't hit lefties. And I do wonder if going into the offseason, that might have been one of the reasons why the Royals had cooled on him a little bit, is they just realized that he might exacerbate their issues, because we've talked about, they do have a large platoon split as a team. But I wonder if they're coming around to the idea that, like, there isn't that perfect right-handed hitting everyday guy that they can afford on the market, that they're probably going to have to put together a platoon of some sort. And if you're going to do a platoon, I can think of a few guys better than Yastrzemski, because in his specific role, he's excellent. But then you've got to give him somebody to go with him. And Austin Hayes would be great. But there are a lot of guys, like, Lane Thomas was a guy we haven't mentioned. Rob Refsnyder, obviously, we mentioned. Somebody along those lines. You bring him in, and maybe you start the year having them platoon with Caglione, but you know that if Caglione starts to hit, and you feel more comfortable giving him more at-bats against lefties, you still have a role for that guy, because if Yastrzemski's playing in the other corner, he's going to always need a platoon guy with him.
Yeah, I think, but when you bring in, I mean, that I do like the idea of bringing Yastrzemski back. I do think they may end up having to just bite the bullet and go 2 years. And who knows, maybe that ship sailed. I don't know. He hadn't signed anywhere, so no one's giving him what he wants to this point. But you still need the right-handed bat. You need it even more. And we had the comment. Let's see, what was somebody said, it was talking about, well, Vinny can't hit left-handers either. Yeah, but you have Salvador Perez that you can slide over there. I mean, you've got the guy on that front to get it done. third string armchair. I'd go 3 years on Bader just to get him here, and then if he sucks in year 3, so be it. Cost of doing business. I mean, can they be that cavalier and just ride
My
off?
concern is even year 2 is going to be overpriced. He's not going to be useless, but
it's already 31 right now.
Yeah, exactly. So,
and
once again, this is why they brought back Jonathan India. Right, they needed the right-handed bat, even if he's not an outfielder, and that's the other option is you just try and load up with a right-handed bat on the infield, and then you go with I'm not saying you don't have necessarily all lefty outfield against lefties, but certainly you have at least in a platoon role against right-handed starters, you might have 3 left-handed bats in the outfield. You can do that if you have Michael Garcia right-handed at third base, Bobby Witt right-handed at shortstop, and Jonathan India right-handed at second base, and Salvador Perez right-handed catching, right? So you have that option. But against lefties, they need to bring in at least 1 and probably 2 bats that are in some sort of platoon role.
And you got a dream scenario right now?
Well, I mean, I will say just minutes before we went on the air, this most recent rumor that the Royals are among the teams interested in Jake Myers. Now, this is more the trade route. Jake Myers is still got 2 years of club control left. He's with the Astros. But he's intriguing because he can play center and is actually a pretty good center fielder. And the question is he a guy you just platoon with Kyle Isbell, or is he actually somebody you could hope to move into an more everyday role? Last year he had a 350 OBP, but he'd been under 300 the previous 3 years. And he's more of a defensive specialist type. I love him in a kind of not fourth outfielder role, but like a platoon plus role. Where he maybe gets 300, 350 plate appearances. He does hit lefties better than righties. He's not a power threat, but he's a guy who could, you can have in kind of an on-base role against lefties. And if you play him in center against lefties, you could still use him up for defensive purposes, like spelling Caglione in right field. Like he could do multiple things for you coming off the bench. The question though is, what's the price going to be? Because everybody wants right-handed outfielders. In the same article that talks about the Royals having interest in him says actually that the Royals are among the teams, including the Reds, the Dodgers, and the White Sox that have shown interest. So I don't want to overpay for this guy either.
I don't want to overpay because he's got a career batting average on balls in play of 307, and last year was 353.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a 344 early in his career. He's also going to be 30 years old. I mean, I get it. I get where they're going, but I mean, I think you're probably going to get Jonathan India-like results. It's going to be less than what he was last year, unless you can completely replicate what they did. Like, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, to me, the reason I like him is because he can help on defense as well. Like, for the same reason I like Bader more than Austin Hayes. The defense still matters, but if the price tag is going to reflect a shortage, then you're almost better off like taking a chance on a guy who is coming off an off year. Like I said, I mentioned Lane Thomas. Lane Thomas is a guy, a year ago, I think we would have been on the top of everybody's, list of like platoon type outfielders. But, it's coming off an awful season with the Guardians, but was actually a big part of their playoff drive in 2024. And I think didn't even like a big homer off of Tarek Skubal, I want to say, in the playoffs in 24. Kind of a perfect platoon guy because nobody thinks he's, an everyday guy anymore. Even though, it was just 2 years ago, he hit 28 dingers, but against lefties, I think this guy could actually be really useful. And you might only have to give him a 1-year deal because he's just, he's coming off such a bad season.
I love the argument going on in the chat room right now. By the way, if you're catching us via the podcast, you can be a part of the conversation in the chat room. But I love, there's this kind of this like, Bader can't, and this is from Adam. Bader can't hit. He's Jake Myers, but more expensive. And Ref Snyder always gets run when we start talking about this.
I mean, Ref Snyder's great, but here's the thing: you're not going to sneak him onto your team and get this under the radar signing. Ref Snyder right now is being talked about by a lot of teams because every team's like, oh, we could use a right-handed stick. He's at the top of the list. There just aren't that many guys.
Yeah.
It'd be helpful if the Royals had a switch hitter, even like somewhere, a switch hitter on the team. The closest thing they have to a switch hitter is Drew Waters. So not going to work out there. But they're flush with left-handed bats. But we may be looking at a situation where they play Indy at second so they can play Michael Massey in left field instead, and that qualifies as their right-handed bat. Like it's slim pickings unless they're willing to go big. One of the reasons why I'm still not giving up on my Bo Bichette dream, because in addition to everything else about him, a good player he is, he's a right-handed stick, and he plays second base, and suddenly you've got 3 everyday right-handed bats in your infield who are among the 10 best infielders in baseball, potentially, in Whit Garcia and Bichette, in which case, okay, you can fake it in the outfield a little bit more easily.
Yeah. It makes sense, but I don't see that dollar figure coming in, because like a lot of the like I know I saw like 165 was the total projection for Dylan Cease. He went for 210. Like, I think it's going to be interesting to see where the market goes on all of these guys. All right, we'll talk about it. If they do have to go down the trade route, where are they going? Who are they going to be trading? We'll do it after you hear from our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. With free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty, Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot.
This isn't just any burger run. This is a burger run for Whataburger Sweet and Spicy Bacon Burger. 2 fresh all-beef patties with melty cheese, grilled onions, crispy bacon, and sweet and spicy pepper sauce. One for you, one for him, and one for your unofficial roommate, Brad. Always order an extra. For Brad. The all-time favorite sweet and spicy bacon burger from Whataburger. Just like you like it.
Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their client. Don't wait, get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222, or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements. All right, how about it? Do you think when it's all said and done that they're going to end up having to move Noah Cameron? That Kris Bubic, the time came and went, and the lesson is going to be when you have an opportunity to move him, you need to move him, and that they're going to watch him play 1 year. If he pitch 1 year, if he pitches for 1 year and pitches really well, then maybe you throw the qualifying offer out there on a 1-year deal, and he'll probably say no if he has a great year, and you head out and you at least get the draft pick. But I mean, to me, what I'm reading is no one's biting on Bubic. Like, if anyone's going to buy, like the Red Sox wouldn't have acquired 2 pitchers if they were going to take Bubic, right? And that's what's scary is the Red Sox seem to be the team that has the most outfielders that fit your mold, and they seem to be filling up their pitching elsewhere.
Well, I mean, when the offseason started, I thought Bubic was a candidate, only going to be a candidate to be traded after he proved he was healthy in the spring. And then we started hearing lots of rumors that Bubic was in demand. And I do wonder now if maybe those rumors were coming from the Royals and not from the other side, because we're back to where we started, which is, look, Kris Bubic is coming off a great year, great 2/3 of a year, but nobody's 100% sure he's healthy. And I get it. And if teams are not willing to pay you as if he's healthy, you can't force the issue, because the more desperate you are to trade the guy, the more teams are going to be suspicious that his health is not 100%. So from that perspective, if you can't get, what I would consider to be fair value for Kris Bubic, then hold on to him. And if he proves he's healthy, his value will be restored as soon as he puts together back-to-back starts where the stuff is there and he's getting guys out, right? And at that point, if you've traded Noah Cameron and you need him for your rotation, great, because you can, like you said, he is one of those guys where he's young enough that you'd feel very comfortable giving him the qualifying offer. And if he takes it, then great. Then you actually have 2 years left of him. And you could still trade him after he takes the qualifying offer the following, next winter, and have as much of an asset as you do now, except better, because then he's proven himself healthy. Or he walks away and you get a late first round pick, a top 35, top 40 pick, which frankly might be more value than you can get for him right now. So from my perspective, if Kris Bubic doesn't have a market, I'm okay with that. Keep him. You still have other guys you can talk about moving. And Noah Cameron, if you have to trade a guy with long-term value because of his contract situation, I just feel like the upside with Cameron is not so high that I'd be worried. I regret trading him a year from now. Right? I don't think he's going to get better than what he was. The question is, if teams value him based on his stuff and his peripherals and not his actual 2.99 ERA, he's not going to have that much value himself. And that's what I'm more concerned about. What can you actually get for Noah Cameron?
Yeah. What would you want for Noah Cameron? I mean, the club control is a big part of the equation for them, and they've got 6 years of it with him.
Right.
And so they're not going to let him go. Like, I don't know that, like, he's another one that I don't know that they can match up with somebody else, because I think they may value him more than other clubs do. Like, other clubs see him as, I think, just like, okay, he fills a rotation spot. I don't know that the stuff, and we've talked about it. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, the stuff the velocity's better than was advertised. I mean, the performance was great last year. The durability was there. I mean, I don't know. What would you want back for Noah Cameron?
So, you want an everyday hitter with at least a couple years of trade value. And I know the Cardinals looking for, pitching, and Derek Gold, I think, has mentioned that they've had interest in Noah Cameron. And obviously the Royals have expressed some interest in Brendan Donovan, and Brendan Donovan's a good player. 2 years of Brendan Donovan for 6 years of Noah Cameron. I think I'd want more than that. I don't think that's enough to justify it, because, are we certain that Brendan Donovan is going to work out better than Jonathan India? And, Jonathan India, okay, you give up Brady Singer 2 years of him, but 2 years of Brady Singer versus 6 years of Noah Cameron, that's a trade you could regret if Brendan Donovan comes in and gets off to a slow start. So I think I'd want something more than that. But you're not going to get Wilyer Abreu. You're not getting Jarren Duran for Noah Cameron. That's just not going to happen. So there's got to be some middle ground in there.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think that, it's I think you're, at least in the Brendan Donovan, you're close enough where some throw-in players can make it work. Right? That makes sense?
Yes.
I mean, I think that is getting you into the discussion, right? Okay, now we know what we got going on here. And so now how do we even it up becomes, the next part of the equation. And I think you've got to be able to do that with some prospects. I mean, that's the beauty of baseball. You've got farm systems. You should be able to even that up. And the Royals are finally willing to take back minor league players, something that they seemingly would never do for, I don't know, the last 30 years. So now, they would seem to have some interest in it. The Cole Ragans talk, I do agree where there was a lot of people talking about, okay, it's Cole Ragans, the Red Sox are going to move it. Like, there was never that has never been close. That is a product of, because who was saying it? Somebody said in here it was laughable.
I mean, I think it's the flip side of the Kris Bubic thing, right? Like the Kris Bubic rumors may have been coming more from the Royals. Well, I think the Cole Ragans rumors may have been coming from other teams that were trying to, put out there how perfect it would be. They could make a perfect Cole Ragans trade, but like the Royals have never shown interest. And look, JJ is willing. You should always be willing to be overwhelmed. And I think JJ, has the same mindset as me. Like if the offer is absurd enough, he will trade Cole Ragans. But it has to be an absurd offer. Like, you have to make the offer. He's not going hunting. He's not shopping Cole Ragans. That remains like the biggest sort of, bullet in his gun, and he can only fire it once. So he has to get that one right.
Yeah. Will they listen? They'll listen to anything. But I mean, I think you would have to be. I don't even know what the deal would look like. To be honest with you, I mean, I don't know, and I think they might be wrong in having this thought, because I think if you're going to live by the statement that, well, I want to see what a wild card team looks like, then they all get hurt. He got hurt last year. Like, if you do get a quality position player, like, I don't know, is the math tell you, like, always flip the pitching for the bat?
If you believe that you have a special ability to develop pitching and make pitchers better, the ballsy thing to do is be like, maybe we can't find another Cole Ragans, but we can find another Noah Cameron. We can sign another Seth Lugo, or at least another Michael Wacha, and get comparable production and get a huge offensive upgrade. So I'm not ruling out, like, it is definitely a transactional thing to do. Let's to use a word we like to use here that JJ used maybe once and we keep repeating 100 times, but like, he's proven himself willing to do that. But Cole Ragans was the rarest thing in baseball last year. He was a true number one starter in 2024. Like, whatever your definition is of what a quote unquote number one, some people say there's 30 teams, so there's 30 number one starters. Some people say there's only 15 because you have to be an above average on an above average team. Some people say there's only 5 number one starters in all of baseball. But even by that definition, Cole Ragans was a number one starter in 2024. And he's under club control for 3 more years. Is it 3 or 4 now? I think it might actually be, it might be just 3 at this point. But 3. But like, and he showed himself to be fully healthy at the end of the season. He misses bats. Like, so you have to be overwhelmed. That's a guy you can afford to be extremely picky with. So I'm not blanketly averse to trading him. I just think that, like, you don't trade him one-on-one, one for one with even a really good outfield. Like, I would not trade him straight up for Jarren Duran. We talked about this. They would have to throw in something beyond that. And given that they've already acquired, like I said, two guys for their starting rotation, you'll find space for Cole Ragans. But that's the thing. Yeah. Even a team that's added starters, every team has a slot for a potential number one. I just think it's unlikely. And I just think to trade Cole Ragans for a short-term need because you need right-handed balance, in your lineup, that would be foolish. You've got to do it as part of a larger vision to remake the entire offense, and that's going to take like a true difference-making bet in the middle of your lineup.
How far away do you think they are offensively to going and getting, going and being a team that can contend for the division title? Like, do you think the names we're talking about are going to be enough to get them there offensively?
I mean, the wild card here is,
let's assume it's not Cole Ragans,
right?
And it's Noah Cameron or it's Kris Bubic. They're going to replace them with whoever is within the organization right now. Are these bats good enough to get them over the hump?
The wild card here, of course, is they've overhauled the hitting instruction, right? And like to say they went from the worst pitching staff in modern, in the American League in 20 years to maybe the best, well, certainly a top 5 pitching staff in the span of about 18 months by changing the pitching coach. I'm not expecting that kind of turnaround, but we're not looking for that kind of turnaround. Can they just be average? Can they just go from 13th in the league in runs scored to like 8th with the talent they already have on hand? Right? That's to me the question. Like, I don't think they have to necessarily add a middle of the order bat. That's why I'm not sitting here saying we should trade Cole Ragans to get a middle of the order bat. They just need to be not terrible in the outfield. They had the worst outfield in baseball last year, and it wasn't close. And from every crisis stems an opportunity. The crisis of their outfield yields a very juicy opportunity in that mediocrity from the outfield would be a huge improvement. Combine that with some improvement from improved hitting instruction, that could get you to average offensively. And the 2025 Royals with an average offense don't just make the playoffs, they contend for the division. So I think they need to add a competent bat in the outfield. And I mean, by competent bat, I mean Mike Yastrzemski paired with a platoon guy might be, well, certainly at least one position. That is it. Caglione emerging would be a second one. And then really you just need a competent right-handed bat. Maybe you could go with Kyle Isbell in center field. All right. Like that might be all it takes, along with Connor Dawson and Marcus Timms, to get them another 50 to 100 runs next year. And I think there's going to be a scenario where, yeah, they're going to be divisional contenders simply by adding 2 average but not premium bats to their lineup.
Yeah, I don't think they're that far away. I mean, I think with Carter Jensen and Jack Caglione, they have 2 wild cards. I mean, you feel pretty good about
100%.
Carter Jensen.
Mm-hmm.
We know there's talent there, and so that I do think the names we're talking about are good enough, right? I think if they can land them and only end up giving away the one pitcher, and I think frankly, really for next year too, Kris Bubic staying on the team. It's like that's great for next year. Like if he's healthy, and the Royals are saying that he's healthy, right? If he's healthy, and you're not going to end up moving Kris Bubic, you're a better team next year. I mean, Cole Ragans, Kris Bubic, the Kris Bubic we saw last year, if those 2 are healthy up at the top, that's as good as anybody's got. 1-2.
It absolutely is. It's this outfield it's hard to really get your arms around just how bad the outfield was, and also how bad it is currently, because like the best outfielder on the team, Mike Yastrzemski, is no longer on the team as of this moment. Do you know, if you go to Fangraphs and look at the depth chart for the Kansas City Royals, do you know who their starting left fielder is for the Royals right now? It's John Rave. Like, that's where we are right now. Right now, they're starting off with John Rave in left, Isbell in center, Caglione in right, and on the bench they have 2 outfielders, or 3 actually. Two who are infield outfield types: Tyler Tolbert and Nick Lofton, and then the other outfielder is Dairon Blanco. Like, that's the current talent level. That's why the Royals are looking to add 2 outfielders to their team, because if you add 2 guys and you move John Rave back down to AAA emergency, and you still are going to want probably Tyler Tolbert on your team in the pinch running role, and can also potentially hit against lefties a little, and then Nick Lofton around potentially in some sort of role if he emerges. Like, I don't hate that, but you've got to add 2 bats, and maybe 3, like Yastrzemski, and then 2 right-handed bats is honestly what I think the Royals need to add right now. They don't. The nice thing is they don't need to add an infielder. They've got the infield on lock. They brought back India. If India's playing second base, they have Michael Massey. Like, they have a lot of options. They don't need a catcher. They've got Carter Jensen ready to go and Salvador Perez here. Like, they're ready to go. But they just and they don't need to add a ton of pitching. Like, okay, they can dabble here and there, but like, they don't have to add any pitching if they really don't want to. They will. But they can focus all their resources on outfielders. They can be creative in how they do it. They can buy it. They can trade for it. I just worry that the market is pricey, and so they've got to be creative, and they've got to, look for opportunities. But on the one hand, they know exactly what they need. On the other hand, they're so bad, they can improve by adding like 50 different guys. Like, there's so many options. Maybe not all of them bat right-handed. Maybe not all of them are great, but all of them are better than what they have now. So it's kind of a weird combination of, they're desperate, but also have like alternatives.
What about the economics? What about the dollars? Like, as part of the reason nothing is going is because, David Lesky, when we talk on Thursday, is like, hey, they say they're staying the same on the payroll. That's what they've said each of the last 2 years, and then they've added about 10%. So he's counting on them to add the money. What if they're tapped out? What if they're not going to add it? They're at about 136 million. They're right around the number right now. I mean, that's another reason why I think they want to move Bubic, is because Bubic is more expensive, and so they theoretically would get, especially if they get a younger bat. But like, I don't think they want to move Noah Cameron down at the league minimum and then take on 6-7 million. I hope that's not the problem, but I mean, I do think it's something that may be one of the roadblocks here.
I hope not. I think it would be terrible timing to be cheap right when you're at the precipice of actually being like a perennial contender. And yeah, their payroll. Yeah, I saw somewhere it was reported that the Royals' payroll is near their all-time high, set when David Glass was the owner in I think it was 2016 or 2017. Like, that is not a flex. That is not the flex you think it is to say we're paying our roster almost as much as we paid 8 years ago, when, just general inflation, let alone baseball inflation, has been 30 or 40% since then. Like, I agree with David that the Royals, you always want to underpromise and overdeliver. The last thing you want to say is we can afford X amount and then not spend X amount. So I'm fine with them saying we're going to spend a certain amount, but they always go 10% over. And that 10% is another, $13 to $15 million, which is what they will need to spend to add a quality guy in free agency. And then, in a trade, maybe, like you said, if you trade Bubic, maybe you don't want to take on any salary at all. But if they make a trade, it's likely not going to be a huge uptick in payroll. The payroll spend is going to be mostly on the free agency side. But I would be disappointed if they don't get to 150 before the season starts. This is a team coming off back-to-back winning seasons. They need to have a payroll that reflects that.
Can I just say no to Terry? Let's convert a right-handed infielder to play left.
I mean, I get the sentiment, this idea of Mike Garcia would be a great center fielder. We were talking about that even a year ago. Hell, back in April, he played 1 or 2 games in center field before they realized, oh, wait a minute, he's hitting now, and he's actually an exceptional defensive third baseman. And God knows you're
not moving a Gold Glove third baseman.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Now that you've got them, that you've got Gold Glovers on the left side of the infield, both spots, like
Jonathan India can't play out there. Mike Garcia made it absolutely crystal clear that he did not want to play out there when he said, "Well, I'm getting caught stealing because I'm having to run around in the outfield." And it was days removed from having the last time he had been in the outfield. I mean, he made it pretty clear that he was not down with it. And now he's a Gold Glove third baseman. And I know Terry says dripping with sarcasm. I know, and I know you are, but I think there are people that would take that seriously. But now, if you're going to sign him, running him around in the outfield, if you do want to sign him, running him around in the outfield is not going to help you. Like
look, on the one hand, yeah, that is not a solution. Whereas a year ago, maybe it was, but it's not a solution for the best possible reason, because he's become the ultimate solution at another position at third base. And the issue with Mike Garcia now is not where does he play? It's, can we get him signed to an extension to keep him in Kansas City for another 6, 7, 8 years or whatever. So no, you don't want to create a new problem to try and solve an existing one. And like I said, the problem is India we were in this position a year ago. We thought they'd solved it by trading for Jonathan India. And I think everybody is just come around to the idea that Jonathan India cannot play the outfield. It's one of many reasons why that trade has not worked out.
They said as much at the end.
Yeah, I think he's like, I've gotten that out of my head now. I've dabbled with it, but he's a second baseman or a DH basically at this point.
I would also say that, they've had one good year, really good year of hitting from Mike Garcia. Like, it's not like, okay, we know the bat will play wherever. Let's mess with him mentally on where he plays, right? Like, so I don't, when we saw what it did for India, listen, let's back up here. The fact that they have not been able to develop an everyday outfielder is confounding. Like, I don't understand how it's the only position that you have 3 of. Like, and they can't get one. Right now, I'm assuming that's going to change with the new drafting and new people in charge, but it is mind-boggling that we're sitting.
I mean, look, my hope is we have this discussion mid-May, and we're already talking about Jack Caglione as an above-average everyday outfielder. Maybe he's not going to play there his whole career, but like you said, they've already taken steps, and the new drafting may have already found us at least a short-term solution in the outfield. And Kyle Isbell, all things considered, he's not a problem. I'm not saying he's a solution. He's not a problem. It's really the lack of corner outfielders who can hit, to the point where they had to take a chance with Caglione out there. It's been very frustrating. Some of it is they just haven't put a ton of, necessarily emphasis in it. Part of it is the one time they took a big swing with the top 10 pick, they used it on Gavin Cross, right? I mean, that's the guy who should have been, in their outfield by now already, and he probably never will be. And it's made up for by the fact that, they have Witt and Garcia, and I'd rather develop infielders. I think it's always easier to find an outfielder, in part because they're somewhat interchangeable. You can move a right fielder to left, but it's much harder to move a third baseman to second base, for instance. Teams will do that, but that's a lot riskier. And of course, they have a new catcher. Like, I'd rather have Carter Jensen than a comparable guy in the outfield, because as Salvador Perez, reaches the end of his career, catcher, if you think it's hard to find an outfielder, like trying to find a catcher who people believe in can catch should be really, really difficult. Now, I say that should be because, of course, the Royals have Blake Mitchell, and you're like, well, that guy should be, a huge trade, asset right now. But I'm a little bit nervous about the idea of trying to trade him in this market, because I don't know what you saw the trade. The Mariners traded Harry Ford to the Washington Nationals, who I really like. And there's some questions about his defense. And the problem is, we've talked about 1,000 times. If you're a catcher who can't catch, you're a first baseman, and you lose all your value. And obviously we see, or you're MJ Melendez, and you shouldn't have had any value to begin with. And there's some questions about his power, but he's been a top 100 prospect 3 years in a row. And it's not like his performance suddenly went to crap. I mean, he had a 408 OBP and a 460 slugging in AAA this year. And he got traded for Jose Ferrer, who's a left-handed reliever. Basically a better version of Angel Serpa. And the Mariners actually had to throw in an arm into the deal. Like, the Mariners are the ones who had to give up more than Harry Ford to get a left-handed reliever. And what's interesting is how many people in baseball are fine with this trade. And maybe it's just Harry Ford has been overrated his whole career, or maybe...
Oh, here's Cotman. Keith Law said the trade was fair because Ford can't catch and catch.
Right. I mean, it may just be a reflection of Harry Ford, but it just strikes me that if Harry Ford has been this guy all along, why is it he kept being rated as one of the 100 best prospects in baseball? And maybe it's like MJ Melendez. You just, you get exposed. It's very difficult to evaluate catcher defense in the minor league level. But if that's the case, I mean, it makes me a little nervous about Carter Jensen, just because until he's in the major leagues, and the month we saw, there was no issues with his defense that I could harbor. Sometimes it takes a little longer than that. But it makes me even more nervous about Blake Mitchell, even though we've had JJ Cooper on this show. JJ Cooper, who also talked about how Harry Ford is not one of the 10 best catching prospects in baseball, and loves Carter Jensen. So maybe it's just a Harry Ford problem, but it just makes me nervous that doesn't just love Carter Jensen, but also had good things to say about Blake Mitchell, and that Blake Mitchell can play defense and does have power. But Blake Mitchell was also an A-ball, and Harry Ford, nobody was saying this till he got AAA. So it just makes you nervous that evaluating minor league catchers is difficult, and the catching superstar prospect you thought you had may turn out to be MJ Melendez or Harry Ford. So if the Royals can get something for Blake Mitchell substantial, might be better off now trading him than waiting a year and turning him into a left-handed reliever.
I think this one's interesting from Anthony. He said, given the episode's discussion about the outfield market, is anyone developing outfielders?
I mean, that's sort of the point. Right, exactly. It's like, part of it is because players 30 years ago, certainly 50 years ago, that would have moved to the outfield early on in their career are staying at positions like shortstop or second base and thriving there, right? I mean, Bobby Witt would make an amazing center fielder. I'm convinced of that. We've seen the way he tracks fly balls, right? Like, would teams have allowed him 20 years ago, 30 years ago? Probably, yeah, because he would have been coming up with like Nomar Garcia-Parra, Derek Jeter, and Alex Rodriguez. But go back to the 70s and 80s, and just like, it's almost like if you hit that well, you couldn't be a shortstop. Teams were suspicious of shortstops who were that good. And so they moved them to a different position. So I think some of it is, could Willie Mays have been an amazing shortstop? I don't know. But I just don't think that teams looked at a guy like that.
Well, and I think if you trust the metrics, defensively, both Garcia and Witt will start to tail off, before long. Like, the defense erodes. Like in the old days, you were, fantastic. The eye test said you were great. Derek Jeter early on, and then you eroded, but you'd built the reputation, so everybody just assumed you were good. Now all the defensive metrics say that guys kind of get old and get worn out. And I think that there is a little bit of that, like they didn't want you playing shortstop back in the day because they didn't want you wearing out your offense, by grinding, playing such a demanding defensive position. And so there will be a day that Bobby Witt Jr. moves.
I mean, it happens to everybody, and defense peaks young. Like,
yes,
really, 24, 25, you're about as good. Like Bobby Witt right now, he's not going to get better defensively.
No.
And especially in the outfield. I mean, a guy in a 30-year-old playing center field has become a rarity because we can measure defense so much better now. And now that we can't, it's kind of like catcher framing, where there were some horrible framing catchers 15 years ago. Ryan Domit, legendarily bad. By one metric, cost his team 72 runs in a season, and he wasn't even playing every day. Think about how bad 72 runs defensively with his framing. But because we didn't know, nobody knew. Like nobody knew just how important it was, but also just how bad you could be. And what happened once we learned how bad you could be, guys like that stopped catching. Like MJ Melendez got moved a lot faster than he would have maybe 15, 20 years ago because the numbers of his framing were so bad. And it's sort of the same thing with outfield defense is that, you used to have guys like Ken Griffey Jr. was legitimately excellent defensive center fielder in his 20s. When he went to Cincinnati, when he was 30, he was bad.
Yeah.
Like we know now, I just say Kirby Puckett, young Kirby Puckett, built like a bowling ball, kind of a weird shape, but like was a really good center fielder. It wasn't even 30. He was like 27, 28, and his numbers just fell off a cliff. And he was like a huge liability late in his career. But again, this is with the benefit of hindsight. Some of us who are like on the proto internet in the 90s were talking about it then, but 99.9% of people had no idea. But now everybody knows. And so those guys get moved quickly, and you're 30, 31. You're not playing center field anymore unless you're absolutely, Gold Glove caliber when you're in your 20s.
Yeah, it all changes. All right, so what would you bet on happening? Let's wrap with that. What do you think is ultimately going to? First of all, I think you keep saying, well, sometimes the winter meetings. I don't remember the last time anything came out of the winter meetings, and frankly, because certainly while we've been doing this podcast, because you get excited every year, and then we end up sitting here going, okay. So I don't. They'll lay some groundwork, but what do you think ultimately they get done?
It feels to me, and again, the evidence may completely contradict me, but it always feels to me like nothing gets done in the winter meetings. They lay the groundwork, and then like the Friday after the meetings, they make a signing. And then next week, they'll make a trade. Like stuff will get done fairly soon, like in the month of December, before Christmas. But it's just not in the winter meeting when the whole world is watching baseball for 4 days in the off season. Nothing gets done. Very frustrating. But my prediction is I think they will re-sign Yastrzemski. I think they'll probably sign Austin Hayes. And if he's too rich for their blood, I mean, this is just my heart talking because I like him, but I think Lane Thomas would be a good fallback. But I think they will sign a right-handed hitting free agent to go with Yastrzemski. And then they might just sign a left-handed reliever and call it a day. Like, I'm not sure they're going to go beyond that unless a truly like offer they can't refuse for one of their pitchers comes along. Like they still have an excess of pitching, but like the benefit of that is you can wait on trading those guys into March, April, and make sure that like you don't have 2 or 3 pitcher injuries to your rotation. You need them. And if you get to the, close to opening day and Ryan Bergert has shown he's healthy and you actually have 8 starters, then, some team out there is going to have a desperate need for starting pitching come March. Somebody's going to get hurt and you can still make a trade. And maybe you just trade for prospects at that point. I don't know, but you could still make a really good trade at that point. So I don't think they feel like they have to trade a pitcher now. If they can spend a little bit, because I think you can sign Yastrzemski and a platoon caddy for $15 million and not have to, dip into your prospects or into your pitching stash in order to add talent right now.
Yeah, for sure. Listen, you can always support the Kaufman Corner podcast by supporting our great sponsors. Our sponsors like Gann Asphalt and Concrete with free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warranty. Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer, helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. One contractor, all things parking lot, Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Northland Injury Law for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers. Google, 5-star rated if you've been hurt in an accident. At work, on the roads, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222 or call 816-400-HURT. And from our friends at Whataburger, they have you covered. Open 24 hours a day, serving breakfast from 11 p to 11 a. The sweet and spicy bacon burger. Get it, 2 large beef patties, American and Monterey Jack cheese, bacon, grilled onions, and topped with sweet and spicy pepper sauce. Also, my favorite, the patty melt. It's available at Whataburger. Check it out right now. If you're hungry, they're open. Go see him at Whataburger. For the good Dr. Rany Jazayerli, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Kaufman Corner podcast.